All right, let's start lighting this scene. We are going to be using a combination of HDRIs and area lights and a teeny tiny point light. As a reminder, this is a great time to use HDRI Haven. Bunch of really cool ones here. I highly recommend that you download a few and just experiment with them, not just from the skies, but from all of them. Sometimes you can legit get away with just dragging in a single HDRI and just leaving it, maybe just enhancing it with a single light here and there. But some of the HDRIs are really good for that. In this series now, or in this episode, we will now use the same HDRI we used in the Looked At chapter. Before we do any lighting, we are going to be assigning a better shader to the background. Select the object, right mouse button, assign favorite material, and AI standard surface. I'm going to be setting the color all the way down, and I'm going to be setting the roughness up. Let's just do one change at a time. So first, color down. Again, not an exact value, I just generally want it to be darker. And then roughness up, just so you don't see these extreme direct specular highlights. And then we are going to go into the perspective view. We can just pause the render right away, and we'll start lighting up the scene. But right before doing that, you can see that we have a lot of wasted space right here. We really don't need more than this space. Everything on this side and this side is really wasted. So we are going to go into the render settings under common, image size, and then we're going to set the width to something like 650. See how this works. We just generally want it to be a bit more even, a bit more square. And again, there's a bug where it keeps going into the wrong camera. Something like this. Go under panels, render camera, and now we can just zoom a little bit in because it's quite far away now. So this is generally pretty good. Now we are going to go to the Arnold settings and just set the camera AA to 1. Now this is just so that we get really nice and quick renders. There's no reason at all to spend time really refining each render. That's just a crazy waste of time right away. So we'll go back and set this to something higher later on. And then we'll go back into our perspective view, and then we'll just start to change some of the settings for the HDRI. When we hit Control A, you can now see that we can rotate this. I want to first just rotate this to an angle which works a bit better. Let's try it. We can just select this value, and then we can just start to rotate this around. Essentially what I'm looking for is something which looks better. It doesn't really matter exactly which one it is, but just something which works a bit better. Okay, maybe a little bit more. You can just hold on Control and middle mouse button to get these really fine increments and in the viewport. So I want to be almost in the same spot, but I want it to be in a spot where this gives me, or get this really nice orange highlight that just looks really good. It's also a bit too bright, so hit Control A to go into the actual HDRI. And the way it works is that we have exposure set to the light and that's set to 0 right now. So the only thing which is affecting it is the intensity. So we set this all the way down to 0. There's not going to be any lighting from this at all. So set this to 1 and it's back. But what I want to do is I just want to make everything a bit darker. So I want to set the exposure to -1. That just makes everything half the brightness. So now this is really nice and ambient, which we can use to light up our scene a bit later on. And then I want there to be a light which goes around here, and this is going to give us a really nice, it's going to be around this region here, around where this one is. It's going to give us this really nice highlight in this region. But I don't want to actually hit directly. So I'm going to switch this to world, hold down the E key, and now we can just switch this to world. And I want this to go around like here. And then I want to set the intensity all the way up, or so the exposure all the way up. Something like 17. Remember, this is exponential. So 17 is not just like a little bit brighter than 13. 17 is significantly brighter than 13. And then we'll move it all the way back as well. So I kind of like what we have, but we're going to be scaling up a little bit, then moving it back as well. Use the move tool, then we can just move it back like so. And let's just make the background just a little bit shinier. And we're going to be renaming it as well. So let's call this backdrop shader. And let's change the roughness just down a little bit, just so it's a bit more reflective. And we can also just make it a little bit darker as well. What you can also do, which is a bit cool, is you can add a little bit of color into it. There's a teeny tiny bit of a tint to it, just so it has a bit more interest instead of it just being perfectly gray. So you can clearly see the highlight we're getting from this, which I really like, but I'm just going to be moving this down over a little bit more. Just so now you can actually see it moving. You can see the highlight just moving like this. And remember, you can always change where this is visible. So if you want this to only be visible in the specularity, you can do that. So you have a lot of control with this. If you want this not to be visible in the specular, you can also do that. So you have a lot of control with this. But I really like that we have this one line going like so. Maybe we can even rotate a little bit so we get a bit more of that. Hold down the E key, set this to object, and now I can just start to rotate a little around like so. You can just see what happens when we start rotating it. So it's something like this. We're also going to be naming our lights as we go along as well. We should have done that earlier. Just make sure everything is set under the light. So this is a key light. Key LHT. Whatever you name it, like it doesn't have to be LHT. It can be LGT, LIT, whatever you might want to be, as long as it's consistent. And then we can duplicate it. And what we're going to do now is we're going to be putting this light on the back, and this is going to be a nice rim light. It's going to be around here. And whenever I move the lights around, I always make sure to pause the render. There's no reason at all to have this running when I'm moving it around, because it's not done yet. It's still very much in progress. Just scale down a little, like so. We can just play, and then we can pause it. So I want it to be more on the other side. It's illuminating too much of this side of the helmet now. I want it to be more, that side to be more obscure. So just a little bit. So we'll move it a bit more to the right or to the left, like so. Let's see how this looks. That's really cool. I really like the rim we're getting on the Mohawk now. So this is pretty cool. And then we're gonna make this nice and orange. I'm just gonna make this generally orange. This doesn't have to be, you know, any specific color. This is more like generally orange. And then I want to balance the image just a little bit. Now you can see that there's a lot of light going on here and there's a lot of orange lights. I just want to bring this out a little bit on the left side as well, on the screen left side, just with some more cool light, just so we can balance it off a little bit. So I will go to create lights and I will set this to be a point light. Just a regular point light. And let's just pause the render. No reason to have this going. And we will just put this under the light group and call this point LHT and actually put it under the light group. And we will also rename this to rim light as well. So point light, and then we'll just put it here on the side like so. And if we go under Arnold, we can also change the exposure up. Let's try to put it to 15. And if it doesn't add it to render, just hit Control U and let it refresh, and then it's gonna be adding it actually to the render. So we can set this to 15, just so we have a really nice and bright light. I'm gonna put it something along here, over to the right. Just pause this a little bit. And have it a bit higher up. A bit lower down. We can move it a bit over as well. So similarly, this is pretty nice. Then we can set the color to be something more blue. Just so it's a bit colder and it sparks a bit of contrast. Make it a bit more blue, less cyan. So now we get some nice color contrast here. And it also looks a bit nice that it actually hits the background as well. What we can also do is we can use light linking to really control our lights as well. So let's say we don't want the rain light to affect the background here. Maybe it's a bit too orange. Then we can go to Window, Relationship Editors, and Light Linking, and we can set this to Light Centric. Then we go to Lights, and we can set Rim Light to not affect the environment. And there we go. Now you can see it's not affecting the environment. And then since we were a bit naughty and we didn't actually name these correctly, then we would have to, I didn't know that these are the ones. This is the pedestal. Now we would also have to just deselect these as well. And now you can see this looks really nice and focused. Or if you want this to be affecting the environment, you can also do that. So this looks really nice to me now. I just want to put some bit more color into this light. So just a little bit. I just want to make this a little bit colder. Generally, I just prefer to have some color into it. You can make this a bit more blue, and you can turn a bit more green. You know, whatever you want to, just as long as there's a little bit of color into it. So something like this. So now what we can do, once our lighting is there, now we can make sure the render settings are all nice. You know, because it's back to 3. And at this point, we know that this is probably going to work okay. But then we can also just go through and if you really want to, you know, be specific about it, you can go in and you can use the same technique as we did in the rendering chapter in the actual main part of the series. Or what you can do, you can set this to something like 5, and you can just start to increase the raise. Maybe set this to 6. And this just means that most likely we won't really have any noise in this image at all. This is more of a brute force way of doing it. But let's just let it run and let's just see what happens. And there we go. Now we have a really nice and clean render. And this is exactly what I mean by human time is worth more than artist time. This is where we could have spent 10-15 minutes and we could have really just eliminated all the noise. But this render took 2 minutes to do, and the only thing we did, we just upped the samples. If you do have even more noise, you can even just up the samples again. So this is really the end of this series. Now, I always think it's important to figure out how we can do a better job when it comes to these images. Obviously, this is a tutorial series, and we can't spend 40 hours on a project like this. But let's just do a quick discussion as to how this image could look better. This is really a case where we would have to go into every single area and analyze it properly. The first one would be the modeling. Modeling for this was pretty quick to do. It was pretty efficient, and it generally looked really nice. But because we are constrained by the Maya modeling tools, it's pretty tricky to really get any high-res sculpting done. So if I was doing this for a more serious production, I would have taken this into ZBrush, sculpted this up properly, spent a few hours just on that. Or if you only have Maya available, then I would have just subdivided it more and just worked more on a high-res model. Really just spent time on that. For texturing, I wouldn't really have done it the way we did it here, you know, for a more serious production. The way we did it now was really fast, and you can do everything inside Maya, which is amazing. The way I would have done it if this here was a full-on production is I would have taken this into Substance Painter and really just made it look super nice and crisp there. The advantage of that versus doing something like Maya is that you have so much more control. You can paint everything exactly the way you want it to. If you want some dirt and grime in specific spots, you can easily do that right there. Then we have the groom as well. The groom is looking pretty okay, but if you want this to look, you know, even better, you would have to spend a lot more time getting a lot more strays in there, really just breaking it up a lot more. But I mean, the techniques we used are totally valid, and it doesn't look half bad. But overall, the method we showed in this series, they're totally legit, and you can start using them on your own projects right away. The only thing I would say is that don't rely too much on one software to do anything. Don't be a Maya maximalist or something like that. If you want to do sculpting, find the best sculpting software, which in my opinion is ZBrush. If you want to do texture painting, use Substance Painter. It's a phenomenal tool. One of the main strengths of Maya is really that it works well with other packages. It works really well with ZBrush and Painter's Marvelous Design or whatever it might be. So Maya is a phenomenal package for really all sorts of things, and I really hope you enjoyed this series. You can contact me directly at henning@flipnormals.com if you have any questions, or if you just want to, you know, come with some feedback or some nice words, whatever it might be. And I hope to see you again in future series. And thank you so much for getting this series, and I really hope you enjoyed it.